Hello everyone. We are really happy you joined us today for Extreme Passion. My name's Elaine Muir, and this is my wonderful husband, Rex.
Yes, it's really good to be with you. And it's kind of an exciting day for us, and we're looking forward to talking to you about a wonderful thing that has taken place.
Today we want to share with you all this. You may have read about it in the newspaper. This is in the High Point newspaper. It's the focus. Says a new day and one to remember. But this article is about three very unusual men that God has brought together. Larry Medley and Jim Robbins and Tommy Bryan are with us today, and they're going to tell us their story. This happened way back in 1971, is that correct?
Yes.
And it is just absolutely unbelievable what God has done. So rather than us doing a lot of talking, I'm going to turn around and I'm going to ask Jim here to begin sharing a little bit about what happened back then. Bring it to life for us, Jim, okay?
Certainly. My pleasure, thank you. And I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back to the year 2009 when Larry Medley and I met each other. That was the inception, that was the beginning. And what was interesting is the fact that during that time period, I, with my wife, had set up a breakfast bar at this local church in High Point on South Main called New Day. And I'd actually seen Larry and his wife Tina in the church, but I never actually had met them. So one day on a Sunday morning, this particular Sunday morning we're speaking of, Larry and his wife comes over to the bar. And I, being rather talkative, I said, well, I'm Jim Robbins, and this is my wife, Priscilla. I got to get the wife in there. You know, you got to have a wife in there. Yeah, so this saves me. So anyway, Larry says to me, he says, my name's Larry Medley, and this is my wife, Tina. I go, Larry Medley? Larry Medley? I said, that name sure does sound familiar. I said, how do I know that name? He said, well, I don't know. I said, well, maybe I'm thinking that black news commentator that comes on Fox News, Larry Elder. Maybe that's what I'm thinking of. I said, but Larry Medley sure does sound familiar. Well, with that, his wife is looking me over. She's like, okay, what's this guy doing? So she said, well, you look familiar to me. And I said, well, I don't know how. I just got off parole. I like to joke. So when I said that, Larry takes it up from there, and he says, well, I've been on parole.
So what did you say, Larry?
Yeah, I said, I've been on parole before. And Jim asked me, how did it go, Jim?
I said, well, what were you on parole for?
And I said, well, you know, way back in 1971, I was involved in a shootout between the Black Panther Party and the police department. And that's how I went to jail and wound up on parole.
Well, with that, when he said that he was in a shootout with the High Point Police Department, I said, well, Larry, this isn't our first time meeting. I said, do you remember whenever you were brought out of the house and you were forced to lie down on the hall of the street?
Right.
And there's a police officer standing over you with a shotgun?
Uh-huh.
That was our first meeting. I was that police officer.
No way.
And see, what happened was because of the passing of time, and the name was still in my memory, but, you know, with the passing of years, we don't look exactly like we used to back then.
Right.
So I just didn't know. So then the next thing that happened, of course, I'm sorry.
No, Larry, when he said that to you, you remember I'm the guy that's standing there with the gun over you. How did you feel right at that moment?
Well, I was kind of tickled, you know, because I said, no way, no way. I didn't believe it at first. But after I thought about it, I said, this is phenomenal. This is God. Because my wife, Tina, and I, and the children have been going to the church for, about 6 months. And we knew his wife, Priscilla. We had talked with her, shared with her, ministered to her, and yet we had never met Jim.
Too much.
Wow.
Too much.
So then what happened, of course, with this revelation, we couldn't get enough information back. We were really battering information back and forth. And then we started piecemealing together different segments of it to make with the uniformity involved. And then we come up with a lot of, possibilities and facts. So then afterwards, after I did finally, after Larry and I went our separate ways, I called up Tommy Bryant.
Okay, now how does Tommy come into the picture?
Well, Tommy and I go way back when. I got out of the Marine Corps. I go to the High Point Police Department. My first training coach is Tommy Bryant. So on this February the 10th, 1971, we were working a third shift. We worked on what's Lieutenant Shaw Cook's shift. That was our lieutenant. And I got called in because I had taken a night off. I hated third shift. So he calls me up, and Larry Miller calls me up and says, we're going to evict the Black Panthers. But I guess, and I sort of sidetracked myself because Tommy was my training coach, and I actually was out on my own, but Tommy and I were standing together at a certain location at this Hulda Street address, which was the Black Panthers headquarters. And Tommy's there with George McDowell and Larry Miller, and we're sort of standing in a cluster at a sort of the corner of the house.
Kind of set the stage for what we were doing there, what that was
Oh,
all
go
about.
ahead, go ahead. Take it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, we were there because of the fact we were going to evict the Black Panthers, of course. We were.
Why was the order given to evict them?
Well, you see, information had come from us. First of all, the Black Panthers, the information we had rented a house to do what we were told or informed were training and so forth, and that for whatever reasons there were sandbags in the windows, and they were bringing children in to feed them for breakfast and lunches and that sort of thing for kids who might be hungry on the way to school. But we had some residents from that area that were afraid that since inside that house there were people they were heavily armed, and there might possibly be booby traps around, that they were afraid the children were going to get hurt. And the house being actually owned and rented by a Judge Byron Hayworth. Byron Hayworth was putting forth a eviction notice. So the Sheriff's Department, with the aid of the High Point Police Department, was instructed on that day to serve an eviction notice upon that house. Wow. And so therefore, we were called in at some early hours, or we were told at assembly that night on third shift as we went in, being a member of the 4th Platoon, that there was going to be a special project to happen sometime that morning, and to be expected to be called in, the entire platoon, for a special mission, and that the reserve force would be coming in to take our calls for us during the normal course of duty for those early morning hours. And at some point in time later that morning, I think maybe approximately around 4 o'clock, we proceeded down to Hulda Street.
Actually, excuse me, Tommy, I actually think, and the only reason I know this, I read some back articles, and it was actually, we started down there at 5:45.
It could be. It was the early hours of the
Time
morning.
has a way of changing things.
Well,
doesn't it?
Well, it's recollection. He's read a little more on it since we were asked to come up here.
Sure.
But anyway, it's a very cold morning.
Very
And,
cold.
and
Extreme.
we went down there. It was the sun hadn't come up yet, and it could have been that we came in at 4 o'clock that morning to assemble.
Exactly what.
Maybe
we
that's
did
what
do-
sticks in my
we
mind.
did do that. We did
But
do that.
anyway, we walked down and get into formation. To location, and there was the house that Larry and his people were in. It was across the street. We were positioned in a house right across the street from them. We were at the corner. There was Officer McDowell standing here at the corner of the house, Sergeant Miller over here. I was here. Jim was standing right beside of me. And I recollect that Chief Pritchett and another officer walked up to the door, gave notice that we had an eviction, asked them to come out, then came off the porch, got behind a car, and asked them again, gave them 10 minutes, and then at some point in time, tear gas was fired by Officer Wayne Pike. Missed, ricocheted off the top of the house or the front of the house. The second one entered the window, and then I recollect that a crack fire from the south end of that house, from inside the house. And as I've mentioned before, it was kind of like being in a stadium where a football game is, and there's a wave comes around. That's where the sound appeared to me coming from around the house. That Lieutenant Cook's been hit. He's been shot. He's been shot. And as it come around to where we were standing, then some words were said back and forth. Pritchett, I think, asked, is Cook been hit or what? And when it was known that he had been hit by somebody inside the house, then the order to fire took
before
place.
you go on, I think Elaine was interested in something too. Are you going to ask Larry?
Yeah, I was going to ask, Larry, were you aware that somebody had been hit at that point?
At that point, no. I didn't learn about Lieutenant Shaw Cook getting hit until after we had been arrested, after we had come out and been arrested and indicted.
So, okay, so you're in the house,
Mm-hmm.
and they're over here. Someone's just gone up to the front door and said, you guys got to leave.
Okay.
Right. Okay, and they go back into hiding. Okay. What's taking place during that 10 minutes inside the house?
Well, if I can go back just a little bit, before the officers started down Halder Street, coming down, well, they were parked on Taylor Street, and then they came on down Halder. Before that happened, George DeWitt, he was the coordinator of the Free Breakfast for Children program, at least that week. And so he came from Carson Stout, the other side of town, you know, over to the headquarters to help set everything up and prepare for the children. So when he came down Taylor Street to get to Halder, and he saw the officers, it shook him up. And he ran on down to the headquarters and was beating on the door and said, they're out there, they're, you know, something to the effect that it's going down.
And you were how old?
I was 16 at the time.
Weren't you scared?
Well, I was a little nervous, but see, I had dedicated my life, even at an early age, to try to help bring about a change in society for the betterment of the people. Of course, black people in particular, because we were experiencing oppression in the black community. But we realized that this spread out throughout the whole nation and throughout the world. But immediately there in our area, we were experiencing a lot of, you know, people that were suffering, you know, and we believed that with the country, United States being as rich, as wealthy as it is, it shouldn't be, you know, that poverty that we were experiencing amongst our people. And so as DeWitt came down and he alerted us that the officers were out there, we, you know, we were trained to take our positions. So one of the brothers was downstairs at the window, one in the back, and DeWitt and I, we went upstairs. Now, we had some solution that we had made, eggs and vinegar, that was supposed to help with the tear gas if the officers were to fire. So, you know, we were nervous, scared, felt like, you know, maybe this was it. We're going down, we're gonna die, this is our day. But in our minds, it was like, because it was for the cause of the revolution, and if it meant losing our lives for that cause to hopefully bring about a change of some sort, you know, for the betterment of the people, then we were willing to do that. Now, during that 10-minute period, there was also a young lady